Sometimes, exploring combines unique natural science, American history, possible stoneworks, and breathtaking beauty. I'm author and researcher Mike Luoma. On the first day into the 50s this March, I headed out onto the Lone Rock Point Peninsula, which juts out into Lake Champlain on the north end of Burlington, Vermont's waterfront. Lone Rock Point Peninsula is owned by the Episcopal Church, but through a partnership with the city and the Lake Champlain Land Trust, they have opened up over 2 miles of public trails on their 130 acres of private land. The northern corner of the Rock Point Trails connects up across the Burlington bike path with the city's Arms Forest. There is a progression here. I've come from the sea caves in the Intervale, up and onto the North End Plateau and into Arms Forest. Now, onto the waterfront, and out onto Lone Rock Point Peninsula. Makes a certain sense to keep heading in the same direction. You can see more about the sea caves and Arms Forest in my other video presentations. The trail linked to the Rock Point Trails is very near the boulder feature in Arms Forest. Lone Rock Point is an amazing space, just beautiful. Even before the peninsula proper, it's like walking through a Roger Dean painting. He's the artist who did those great album covers for the band Yes. There's a unique piece of ancient natural history on display here. The Champlain Thrust Fault is exposed, in a big way, at just about eye level on the peninsula's northwestern side. What's a thrust fault? When the plate with future New Hampshire and Maine on it slammed into future North America and Vermont, creating the Green Mountains, about 450 million years ago, it shoved the older orange-tan rock, dolostone, over the younger, darker shale below. This fault runs from Canada to the Catskills, but you can see it here. It's a reverse fault because the older stone is above the younger, the reverse of normal. Since it's at a low angle to the Earth's surface, it's known as a thrust fault. In warmer weather, you can walk right down onto the little beach next to it and see it up close. But these were the stairs down there the day of this visit. The city's North Beach sits on the other side of the peninsula. Chart projectile points have been found there, according to the Vermont Division for Historic Preservation. just south of Lone Rock Point. This area was probably used by the Abenaki for a wide variety of activities. It's of high prehistoric sensitivity, according to archaeologists cited by UVM's Burlington Geographic. It's curious that a religious organization owns the peninsula now, as it strikes me this was a holy and sacred place going back thousands of years. Trees sacred to indigenous folks, cedar and pine, are found all over Lone Rock Point. Thanks to the pioneering work of researchers James Maver and Byron Dix, as detailed in their groundbreaking book Manitou, some in the archaeological mainstream are coming around to the concept Native Americans in the Northeast worked in stone and created ceremonial stone landscapes with rock piles, cairns, stone rows, perched boulders, chambers, and other features. Here in the Champlain Valley, the possible ceremonial stone landscapes I'm finding go further, altering large landscape elements, creating huge effigy works, incorporated into their natural surroundings, most of them serpentine. There are many serpentine ridges on Lone Rock Point Peninsula. A feature I've now been finding in several places in the Champlain Valley are boulders added to a serpentine ridge as a sort of wing or fin, usually propped in place and embellished by other stones, helping to give the ridge the look of a sea serpent. Take a look at this wingstone I found right next to the trail on Lone Rock Point Peninsula. It may not be immediately evident. People pass by here on the trail all the time and don't seem to see it. When we stop and examine it, however, we see the wing is a lighter color, maybe even a different kind of rock than the stone it sits on. We can see it's propped in place, towards the rear, by added stones, which also embellish the design. And when we look down on it from above, we see just how remarkably it's fit into place. Look at the squared-off zigzag cuts to the wingstone and the bedrock base, which help anchor it in place. There seem to be places for other, now missing, wingstones, both behind and perhaps in front of this one. Keeping to the public trails, as this is private land, only a few other wingstones were immediately obvious to me. This single wingfin stone almost seems to be a directional marker. There are 2 wingstones on this feature, one on each side. I wonder if there used to be more to this. John Henry Hopkins, artist, architect, and Burlington's first Episcopal Bishop, bought Lone Rock Point for his family in 1841. His son, John Henry Hopkins Jr., who wrote The Christmas Carol, We Three Kings, also wrote a biography of his father and tells of them blasting with dynamite to clear parts of the peninsula, quarrying the stone on site for building, and covering hollows and bare rocks with earth brought up from the intervale. It turns out Hopkins Sr. is responsible for the quarry in Arms Forest, which seems to have destroyed a sacred site. Without a reason, the girls' school the stone was quarried for never happened, which is why so many stones still lay about the quarry area. Maybe the elder Hopkins, an artist after all, saw the site for a pagan holy space and destroyed it. Although he introduced Gothic architecture to the United States, Hopkins wasn't what you'd call enlightened. He's notorious for arguing that the Bible didn't prohibit slavery during the Civil War. The family eventually gave the land to the church. None of their old buildings still stand. Though old Reverend Hopkins was constantly besieged by money troubles, thanks to his stingy Yankee congregations, he was known to remark that no other minister in the whole church had such striking views as he did on Rock Point. Despite the Hopkins, there are still some amazing stone features here. This ridgetop boulder feature could represent the ridge fins of a sea serpent. Note that the bases of the stones and the bedrock beneath them seems to be shaped in a complementary way to fit together. These are not glacial erratics. Old Reverend Hopkins was right about one thing. The views from here are truly stunning. And there's still more possible stonework to see. This complex grouping of stones appears to be carved into. This interestingly shaped boulder sits perched in its own seemingly natural alcove. But it's surrounded by other stones. And it resembles a bird. Could it be a bird effigy? It is definitely installed here, perched in place on this perch. All over the peninsula, we find curiously shaped stones. And the suggestion of alterations to the serpentine ridges. And still more breathtaking beauty. There's a lot to take in. Given its recent history, I was very surprised to find so much possible stonework on Lone Rock Point. Then again, it's been surprising how much fascinating stonework I'm finding all across the mountains and ridges of the Champlain Valley. I'm developing new ideas and theories about the ancient Abenaki ancestors who may have constructed these elaborate stoneworks thousands of years ago. There's a lot more to explore and experience. I'm author and researcher Mike Luoma. Thanks again for joining me in experiencing Lone Rock Point.